All right, this is like take 50 of this video. So I'm just trying to get this done. Um, I went back through chapter 26, and one thing that I want to make sure that everybody has a pretty solid, decent grasp on is the crash of the stock market and its relation to the Great Depression. Okay, there are when we think of the event kind of as a whole, it's often referred to as the Great Depression. Great Depression is made up of collapse of the financial system, including the banking system, as well as the collapse of employment, right, where you have up to 25, 30% unemployment, and then the failure and collapse of the agricultural system as it relates to like wheat and farming and all that stuff. And I'll probably do a second video on that separate issue. Okay, but first we need to talk about the collapse of the stock market. Now we have talked about the stock market a couple of times, so you ought to have a pretty fair understanding of the stock market and what it is. Okay, in a nutshell, the stock market is where you buy and sell shares of companies at a certain price that is valued at whatever that company is doing. Okay? And as a company's business increases and as that company gets bigger, the value of its stock increases and gets bigger. Right? The bad catastrophic things that happen to that company, that causes that stock price to drop. Okay? Problem becomes when people have all of their money in the world and is tied up in the stock market, which is what we see a lot of today. In fact, a lot of people today have a lot of their retirement is directly tied into the stock market, right? Stock market does well, their retirement does really well. Stock market tanks, their retirement tanks. Okay, this is exactly what we saw in 2008, where people were sitting on, $500,000, $1 million for their retirement, and everything was looking pretty good. Then all of a sudden, the financial system collapses, and they literally have nothing. Right? They literally have nothing. Um, so it's really important we kind of get this and kind of understand this as the collapse happens. Okay. So the issue with the stock market is 25, 26, 27, the stock market grows and grows and grows and grows. 28, 29, the stock market starts to get wonky because people realize over time, as the stock market grew, it got to a point where it almost grew artificially, meaning the prices of company shares are almost kind of fake, right? Because they're almost overvalued. And so what happens is people before the crash, now this is before the crash, people would take money, a small tiny amount of money, and they would take everything that they could and they would invest it into buying shares on margin, or what the term is referred to as on margin, like buying on margin. And so here's what that means. Let's say I take 100 shares of whatever company, like Walmart or Apple or whatever, and I only have money for 10 of those shares. I can go to my little broker guy and I can buy 100 shares on margin. Now I'm giving him money, I'm giving him cash for 10 shares, and then he's loaning me money on the rest of those. Okay? Because you got to remember, as the price grows and grows and grows and grows and grows, what happens to my money? My money grows and grows and grows. So soon I'll have more than enough to pay for those other 90 shares. Okay? Well, the problem becomes when you have people overstretched and overstretched and overstretched and overstretched, and then something happens to make those people lose their money. Okay? It's typically called a margin call, right? So let's say I loan you $100 and you do whatever you do with it, you waste it, whatever. And I come to you the next day and I say, hey, listen, I know I loaned you $100. I need that money back right now. Right? Well, you don't got it because you spent it or did whatever with it. So you don't have it, right? Well, the problem becomes if you don't have it, then I'm crushed, right? Because now I can't pay my bills. And this is what we saw with the collapse of the stock market. As the market began to fall and prices began to drop, people started to get nervous. And as they got nervous, they said, oh man, I got all my money tied up in this. I need to get my money out of this. So what do they do with their shares? Well, they have to sell those shares, right? So as they sell those shares, what do you think everyone else does? They'll say, oh my God, that guy's selling all his shares. I need to sell mine too. That's a problem, right? So all of a sudden you have a massive rush and everyone sells all of the shares that they have. Well, what does that do to the value of a company if all of a sudden the market starts to drop and drop and drop and drop, and then it gets to a point where people are panicking and freaking out and literally taking pennies on the dollar for what it is they originally invested. Okay? So it's kind of easy to see how the stock market would collapse. It was so, the value of it was so made up and was so fake that as the financial system started to have problems, it started to feel little vibrations. And those vibrations kind of cause panic. That panic causes people to pull their money out of the stock market, which in turn causes the whole thing to collapse. Okay? And that it shows a couple different things. One, it shows how delicate the stock market can be. Two, it shows how much human emotions played into this financial system. Okay? And the other historical thing that it showed is the government really refused to get involved within the financial sector at that time. Okay, the government wasn't going to touch Wall Street. Yes, you had people in government that were involved in Wall Street, like making money, but also working for the government. But you also had people that said, hey, this is capitalism. The government does not need to be involved in our financial system. Just let the free market decide, and whatever happens, happens. Well, that's what happened, and the whole thing collapsed. Okay? All right. So let's talk real quick about how it collapsed. And this is where it kind of gets a little bit tricky. And if you've got questions, throw a comment down below, or a comment on Google Classroom. Now, the banking system is tied to the stock market and is tied to interest rates. Right? They're all together like a little loopy loop. So as the stock market begins to drop, the banking system begins to drop because people are losing money. And that like big money, like gajillions of dollars. Well, as that begins to happen, banks kind of don't know what to do as it relates to them losing all this money. Okay? On top of that, when times get uncertain, people want to have their money at hand. Okay? Meaning they want to have it in their mattress. They want to have it in a coffee can somewhere. They want their money where they can get to it. Okay? And one of the issues that happens is as the stock market drops and as it crashes and as people begin to lose their money, people begin to take their money out of banks. Okay? Now this is known as a bank run. And I think let's say on my YouTube channel, or actually on Google Class, I'll post a video of a bank run so you can kind of see it from It's a Wonderful Life. A really wonderful movie, but it shows a really good scene of a bank run. So what happens is everyone runs to the bank and they withdraw out all of their money, right? Well, as we've kind of talked before, banks don't necessarily have to have, check out my time here, I'm going to do 15 minutes. Banks only have to have a certain amount of cash on hand for what they have. I want to say 10% or less. There's a lot of, the Franklin-Dodd Banking Act regulates how much cash they have to have, and I can't remember if it's 10% or whatever. Anyway, point is, they only have to have a certain amount of money on hand. If everybody runs and grabs all that money, then the bank fails because people can't get their cash out. Okay? Well, as the stock market crashes, everyone freaks out. Everyone runs to the bank. They pull all of their cash out, and the banks fail. As each bank begins to fail within the system, the whole entire economic system begins to collapse. Okay? And that's a massively huge problem because no one ever expected that the American banking system would collapse. Okay? And it didn't take much. And that's kind of the key thing you have to understand. It did not take much at all. Right? Crash in the stock market, joblessness, a run on banks, right? And more than anything, and this is key, a lack of faith within the banking system, right? Where people lost faith within the banking system. Okay, hang on 1 second here. I hope you guys had a good day, by the way. Okay. Okay. Now this is on page 1082 of the book, and this sums this whole thing up nicely, and I'll kind of wrap it up with this. By 1932, the nation's economy had experienced a broad collapse that brought prolonged record levels of unemployment and widespread human suffering. From 1929 to 1933, U.S. economic output, called gross domestic product or GDP, dropped almost 27%. The unemployment rate by 1932 was 23%. Okay? Now this is key. Again, this is on page 1082 of your book. The stock market crash did not cause the Great Depression, but it did shake public confidence in the nation's financial system, and it revealed major structural flaws in the economy and in government policies. Okay? Now, this is one of the issues with capitalism, and particularly as it relates to back then when the government did not regulate its economy very much. It's very hands-off. But we'll get into that a little bit later on. Next video that I'm going to do, I'm going to cover just real quick the whole farming aspect of what are you doing, buddy? We'll cover the whole farming aspect and how that relates to the Great Depression. So I hope you guys have a good day. If y'all need anything, don't hesitate to email me, and I'll see y'all later on.